If you feel you have what it takes to be awarded as the best in the business, here is your chance to apply. Head on over to our website, download the form and apply. If you face any troubles when applying or feel the need to get in touch with us directly, email us, call us, tweet at me directly at Sunanda_J or join our Facebook group.
Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, ET Now's daily initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium companies. This is the only daily MSME platform in the country, a show where you can voice your concerns and get answers to all your queries directly from our team of experts. We understand the issues that you, the MSME entrepreneur, face, and this show aims to bring you the most relevant and updated information on everything related to your businesses. This is a wedding week special and we're talking to the specialist in the matchmaking business, GOURAV RAKSHIT of Shaadi.com. Thank you very much for speaking with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. Such a pleasure having you on the show, particularly because we're doing a wedding week special. Let's start by talking about how the industry has really changed. You've been in the industry for a really long time. You've used technology and been a forerunner in some sense amongst your peers. What kind of changes have you seen?
So I think the industry has changed in terms of acceptance of online, the online platform itself. I think that's something that is the biggest shift that no individual player has been able to bring about. If I had to pick one, I'd say Facebook more than anybody else, because people are online and out and about more than they've ever been before. And I think that was one of the bigger challenges for a business like Shaadi.com, to get people to become more public with who they are. And so those kind of shifts are really large. They're to our advantage. Every player in the industry is sort of contributing to it. But now the internet's live and everybody's on it. So it's a very interesting new phase of growth for all our businesses.
So when we're talking about the wedding market, of course, there are different segments.
Right.
There's, of course, matchmaking services.
Yes.
There's also the offline in some sense of, the venues, the food,
Right.
clothing, etc. Is it necessary that MSMEs be able to harness technology if they want to talk effectively to this market?
I think so. I think that consumers require a significant push from the natural modes that they've been accustomed to so far to be able to move into a new service offering. And so if you look at the evolution of Shaadi.com, it was a significant disruption in the way they were able to connect with other people, which then led them to start to believe. And then word of mouth succeeds like nothing else. Most people have met somebody through Shaadi.com or know somebody that's met someone through Shaadi.com, and that's the biggest success metric that a business can have. So in the early days, I do think businesses should harness technology because they're able to offer something that doesn't exist today. And at that point, if the proposition is strong, our consumers will come.
Let's talk about competition.
Sure.
In the wedding market, which is so huge, because it is fragmented, small companies are competing with companies like
Yes.
yourself. So what, if you had one piece of advice for our viewers who are watching this show about how MSMEs can compete with larger peers, what would it be?
Sure. I think that MSMEs need to recognize that the one advantage they have, which is more than a Shaadi.com, is that they can actually occupy a thin vertical slice. So they can be more relevant than potentially Shaadi.com even would be to that segment of customers. So that's to their advantage. And if they can really wow that customer, they should have a play. The challenge they'll face is that if that segment is not wide enough for them to actually invest, and they underestimate that customer, saying that just because I'm doing that segment, I can offer potentially a subpar experience. That's where I think that they would get into trouble. So if they're able to offer a compelling experience to a well-defined vertical within our overall horizontal space, they probably should win. I think sometimes they don't see that road as clearly, and so that then becomes sort of self-fulfilling, that they're small, but they're also not at the cutting edge, because the consumer will not take that compromise. Even though that you're choosing to be in that vertical, the consumer now is exposed to everything. And so at some level, their expectations, even if they happen to be in your little vertical, are at par with what's best in class in the industry.
So speaking of that, what kind of synergies then can MSMEs who are operating in a particular vertical, what kind of synergy can they have with a larger peer?
So So I'll give you certain examples of where MSMEs do a better job than us. Like in our international markets, for example, we're an internet business, and for some time we used to organize speed dating events, mixers, what have you, right? We're not the best company to do that. And MSME is actually better suited to do that than we are. And so there we typically go and partner with them because they're actually more agile than we are on the ground. And so we then sort of, it's a match made in heaven in that sense, because they don't have to invest as much in the overall ecosystem, which is what we take care of, but they can focus on doing stuff that we're not as capable of. So I think that there are, I don't want to call them ancillary services, but there are definitely opportunities to collaborate with MSMEs all across the board.
So are these dating apps that seem to be gaining a lot of popularity of late, is that a competition to a service like yours?
Well, we're seeing a lot of action in the dating space, and it's not really grown out into the tier 2 towns and tier 3 towns as much, but to that extent I think it's definitely a compelling proposition. Right now matchmaking online is still nowhere near mature, and so the more people that choose to do matchmaking, whether for the purpose of wedding or dating online, it's to our advantage because it gives credibility to the industry. I think that we've seen this wave for the last couple of years. We were tracking it to understand, is India ready? Candidly, I'm not seeing that as of now. I can't put a timeline when, because I do think that we're getting more and more open to adopting different ways of meeting people. But it looks like there's still a few years before it can tip and then go mainstream, because that I think would be one of the things in these industries is that they're ecosystems, they're networks. Unlike an e-commerce business or whatever, you need a large enough network so people can actually find connections, and that's where I think they're hitting a wall a little bit. Is my sense.
Typically for a Shaadi.com, who's your audience?
Our audience is mostly individuals. More than 70% are individuals representing themselves. There's still about 25 to 30% parents and siblings that come to represent their kids. Some of their kids are studying abroad or are sometimes not living with their folks, and so that's very much still there. Not nearly what you would expect in India. I think the internet is skewed in that regard, and when we do our surveys externally, it's usually between 30 and 35% kids, and then most of the other people that are looking are the parents. But the internet obviously has things backwards often.
Let's take a slightly big picture view and talk about you as an internet company.
Sure.
First of all, congratulations on being awarded one of the most innovative companies in the world about 4 years ago. What do you think were some of the lessons you learned from that experience, and what can you talk to our MSMEs about in terms of standing out from their peers?
Sure, good point. I think that the question is really good in terms of standing out. One of the challenges of the internet is that it's littered with great companies that no one's ever seen or heard of. And that's unfortunate. It's not the same as setting up a retail store, for example, because you've got foot traffic and you will get noticed. In the internet, you can get sort of ignored very, very easily. And so at some level, it's important to be able to stand out, like you said. And for MSMEs, that could mean just doing one thing right, one thing special that at least a group of people will love you for. As opposed to, again, as I mentioned, boiling the ocean, trying to do everything for everybody, because we live in a snacky sort of world where people don't have the time. And so if you can really form a deep bond with a group of people that feel a particular way, you have much higher odds of success than trying to be everything to everybody. It sounds fairly obvious in that sense, but I see a lot of people trying to go big too soon. And the problem with that is that it's easy to go big in short spurts, but you don't get people coming back. And so if you're not holding individuals that engage with you emotionally, then you're probably wasting your money, because it's easy to bring people once to anything.
All right, Gaurav, just hold that thought. We'll take a quick break on that note, but we will continue picking his brains on the other side. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, and we're talking all things wedding on this Wedding Week special. I'm in conversation with Shaadi.com. We love talking about do's and don'ts here, the leaders of tomorrow. So I want you to talk specifically to our MSMEs, given that we're in a social age.
Right.
Most brands now are on social media. And just as often as it is important for brands to have a presence on social media, it's equally important to know how it can backfire and hurt you as a brand. So maybe the top 1 or 2 do's and don'ts when it comes to building a responsible brand online and using social media.
Sure, good point. I think the social world is very interesting and it's been very good to us. While we're obviously in the business of Shadi, based on most of our metrics, we're among the most engaging brands as well on social. And on the social platform, the advantage is that while on Shadi.com we really talk to match seekers, on the social platform we talk to everybody. We talk about everything about life, love, marriage. And so everyone, whether they're looking or not, participates with us, and then we sort of become the conscience of a particular segment of the country, and that works really well because when they understand who you are and you know what you stand for, they understand why you do what you do. That makes that relationship a lot better, and that's kind of the way they engage with us. I gave you the example of a dowry calculator, and if I extend it, so when we put it online, there were enough people saying, how can Shadi.com put a dowry calculator on Twitter? There were people bashing us. And then there were our own fans telling them, go see the thing and you'll understand what actually Shadi.com is trying to say. And it was awesome because at some point we got cut out of the dialogue and they were just talking to each other, and all our sort of fans and people that had actually gone through the dowry calculator we put out thought it was brilliant. So it was awesome. So in that sense, I think being social is important. It's not really a soapbox. So to that extent, I think brands tend to use it to put out notifications. That's pretty boring, quite frankly, in a medium where you can have dialogue. And so we track something, and while we also look at absolute fans and things like that, we really look at our engagement rate. So how many of our fans are talking to us? And that's where we actually benchmark ourselves very highly in India. And I think that's helped us because there are influencers everywhere. And a decision like whether to get match made by a Shadi.com is sometimes not purely a 2 + 2 = 4 type of decision. It's emotional. And so there's a lot of support structures involved in terms of people that think well of us. And social is a great place to see that. So I would definitely encourage people to invest in it. Having said that, it's easy to lose money as well in social. So it's important to make sure that you're doing it with an intent of dialogue and actually track the fact that people are engaging with you, because otherwise you're just buying fans, which I think is no longer acceptable. I mean, I think given what social media offers, it would be criminal to waste money like that.
Okay, fair enough. Internet businesses have been on the government's radar for a while now, whether positively or not so favorably. What's your own take on the regulatory environment that exists right now for internet companies?
I think it's evolving in India. It's a good thing because I think a lot of the government agencies are concerned, and it's genuine concern. It's not something that they don't necessarily believe in, but they're sort of putting structures from somewhere else. They are, as we become larger and larger, it does affect a lot of people. We sign up more than 11,000 people every day. So it is getting into the fabric of our society, most certainly. And so I think their heart is in the right place. I think there is a bunch of things that they're doing that are really going to help us. They've got this digital locker project, which I think is a really good one. It's probably still 12 months out, where everybody's identities will be sort of managed centrally, if you will. And that will really help us because today, you look at simple things like marriage registries. It's not centrally managed anywhere. So to know whether someone's already married or not, you essentially aren't easily able to find out that information. And truth be told, I think they will take us ahead of most other economies, given the vision that they've shown, the UPI, the Unified Payment Interface. Awesome initiatives that really help because not just us, all industries struggle with the friction of mobile payments. And they're tackling it. So I do see that it's a journey, it's a road. But when you see these kind of green shoots coming out, very, very positive. It's very good for us.
Okay. Will GST affect the nature of your business?
Not dramatically. I think that as we move into smaller towns and ticket sizes become harder, we are a social service, so we wouldn't want to keep passing on, price rises and things like that to them. But given that most of our expenses are also on the service side, it's got a moderate impact on us. We don't exactly know where we're going to fall right now. I think it's still being decided, but it's not huge either way for us.
Okay. Will foreign funding and foreign inflows into the internet space here in India really change things for your market?
I think that it can catalyze certain markets. It's done really well in the e-commerce space. It's done well in travel. It could do the same thing for the web tech space, because what it allows us to do is achieve scale faster. At some level, it's tempting to overinvest, and I think in certain sectors we've been guilty of overinvesting, and so we've got to be careful of that. But most certainly, every time we're learning a new industry, capital helps to sort of accelerate that scaling out to then build out a proposition for the consumer. So I'm positive on capital inflows in that sense. I think it's a good thing, very, very good thing.
Since you're talking about global players, any lessons that MSMEs in India, in your opinion, should be taking away from some of their global peers? What are some of the lessons in excellence we should be learning? Right.
So I think that we're also seeing the emergence of two types of models. There's the US-centric model and the China model, and they're slightly different. In the US, they focus on one thing, one very, very narrow thing, in fact, and I mean that's what allows a company like WhatsApp to be worth $17 billion and get bought out, because they just solve one problem and do it really, really well. And that's definitely a route to go. A lot of our MSMEs are adopting that, and as we start building out products in India, which I think is still nascent, there's a lot of that going on. And then there's the China way, where they don't look at the individual service, they look at the customer. And they say that this set of customers is mine, and so I'll service them with everything. Movie tickets, home delivery of food, all those kind of things. So they look at, again, narrow segments though, and these guys look at narrow services. In both cases, the learning is narrow, I think, is that don't scale too fast. The problems of scale are manifold. Getting large investors on board that have very high expectations are probably not right for a small business that's trying to figure out its own playbook. And so during that, you really want to have your sword sharpened, whether it's a narrow segment or it's a narrow service. You need to get that absolutely right, because scale is not hard in this country. We do have 1.3 billion people, but undoing certain paradigms that you've gotten into or certain ways of working which are not healthy for you, those become very tricky once you get to a particular scale. So be careful of scaling too quickly.
You were talking earlier about the dowry tracker. I do know that you have Shadi Cares.
Yes.
How essential is it for a brand like yourself or for an MSME to have a public voice when it comes to CSR or engaging with society? Because in some ways also it helps MSMEs build that kind of brand for themselves, that they're a company which is different from their peers.
So I do think that it helps the brand. I'd be lying if I said it doesn't help the brand. But I do think it also reflects who we are. And so, if the only reason to do CSR is probably not brand building, because it's one of those things that if it comes naturally to you, it becomes much easier to invest in. It's harder to invest in it when you're looking at it from a brand return perspective, because you're probably going to get a bigger return from being on television. So at some level, given that as an MSME, you have a strong bond with a particular set of consumers or a particular set of issues, at that point, your conscience will take you there, as opposed to it being a reason for a brand. And yes, it will certainly build your brand. But if you start off with the notion of brand building, it'll probably fall off, because it's not necessarily as short-term effective as putting an ad on TV or what have you. So, but it does give you a chance to tell people what you believe in. It gives you a chance to connect with your consumers at a conscience level, because they feel the same way. It's not like they don't feel the same way. It's tapping into something that's already out there. And so to that extent, what you're able to do as an MSME or a small brand is to be able to then harness that existing intent of users and give them a platform to voice it, because they don't have anyone to share that with. There's not, even if you felt strongly about dowry and condemned it, there's no way to participate in that unless the Shadi.com gives you a platform and a voice and the ability to influence not just your friends, your peers, your families, and then people start saying things like that, saying that I'll never let my dad, give dowry for my sister, and those kind of things. That's where it gives, you give them a voice which they didn't have before. So certainly I think it's a good thing for businesses, but heart should be in the right place.
As I'm winding down this conversation, I want to come back to talking about Shaadi.com. Maybe you can tell us what are the next few years looking like for you?
Sure. I think we've done a pretty decent job in moving to the mobile as a new form factor. And I say that because it's fundamentally changed the way our service is consumed. Where we used to count on maybe 30-35 minute sessions in front of a desktop. Now we've got people spending 2 minutes and 3 minutes on Shaadi.com. And so it's important to create relevance in those small snacky moments that people use where they're looking for profiles. And so that was a bit of a journey for us. I think going forward, some of the things that we're keeping an eye on, definitely multilingual. It's more complex than it is in say the media space or in certain other spaces because there's a lot of user generated content. And so figuring out how to do that in a multilingual fashion while keeping the original context of the user or the content or the intent of the user, that's something that we're grappling with and trying to figure out how to move to. Most certainly discovery algorithms, as we see newer and newer segments coming on to the platform, we sort of have to keep reinventing ourselves in terms of how we do matchmaking, who we sort of recommend. All of that's sort of a moving target. There's no end state for that, saying that we're here and all the best to the rest of the guys and catch up when you can. It's not like that. It's new people coming on, new modes of matchmaking, as well as new preferences, if you will. And so we sort of have to keep agile on that. So those are really the key areas that are the crux of our business. Beyond that, like you said, we're looking at the wedding space and thinking about, can we do something disruptive there? But that's early stage still. We're still formulating our thoughts around that.
Thank you very much for speaking with us, Gaurav. That completely wraps up this special interview with Shaadi.com. But do remember, if you are a business that wants to be featured on the Leaders of Tomorrow, you can write in to us at leadersoftomorrow@tanzgroup.com. You can tweet at me personally at Sunanda_J. You can reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT or call us on that number that you see flashing on your screen. We promise to have all your queries answered. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
If you feel you have what it takes to be awarded as the best in the business, here is your chance to apply. Head on over to our website, download the form and apply. If you face any troubles when applying or feel the need to get in touch with us directly, email us, call us, tweet at me directly at Sunanda_J or join our Facebook group.